The great chamber of the Galactic Council stretched upward for nearly 1,000 meters. Its walls lined with viewing platforms where delegates from over 400 species watched the proceedings below. Ambassador Elena Vasquez had prepared for this moment her entire career. But nothing could have readied her for the sheer scale of what she faced. She stood on a small platform in the center of the chamber, feeling very much like an insect under a magnifying glass. The Velith speaker towered above her on the central dais, its body a writhing mass of bioluminescent tendrils that pulsed with soft blue light whenever it communicated around her. Beings of every imaginable form filled the tiered seating creatures of living crystal that chimed when they moved. Gas beings contained in magnetic bottles, liquid metal entities that shifted shape constantly, and hundreds of others that defied human classification. Elena took a deep breath and activated her translator implant. Honored members of the Galactic Council, she began, her voice steady despite the trembling in her hands. I come before you as the representative of the United Earth Government, seeking formal membership in the Galactic Accord. The chamber fell silent for a moment. Then the laughter began. It started with the Korath delegation on the eastern platform, a chittering sound that their translators rendered as deep amusement. The sound spread quickly through the chamber like a wave, each species expressing their mirth in their own way. The Maide crystalline desic rang with high-pitched tones of derision. The Morthaki rumbled with bass frequencies that Elena felt in her bones. Even the normally stoic Viridian observers allowed their facial plates to shift in what she had learned was their equivalent of a smirk. Elena stood perfectly still, her face betraying nothing. The Vela speaker raised several tendrils, calling for order. The human delegation wishes to join the accord, it announced, its translated voice carrying a note of what might have been pity. Let us review their qualifications. A holographic display materialized in the center of the chamber, showing images of human spacecraft. Elena felt her stomach tighten as she recognized the UE's Prometheus, the very ship that had carried her to this station. The vessel looked crude and primitive compared to the sleek design she had seen in the docking bays, all harsh angles and visible seams where hull plates had been welded together. The humans have achieved faster than light travel within the last 30 standard cycles, the speaker continued. Their vessels are powered by fusion reactors and propelled by ion drives. More laughter rippled through the chamber. They possess no energy shielding technology, the speaker added. Their defensive systems rely entirely on physical armor plating. The Desic ambassador rose from its seat, its crystalline body catching the light as it spoke. Honored speaker, I must point out that the humans still employ kinetic weapons as their primary armament, it chimed. Projectile launchers and mass drivers that were obsolete before most species in this chamber achieved sentience. The laughter grew louder. Elena clenched, her fists at her sides, but kept her expression neutral. She had been warned this might happen. Admiral Cham had told her before she left Earth that the galaxy would not take humanity seriously, that they would see only weakness where strength existed. But hearing the mockery firsthand was something else entirely. The Korath ambassador scuttled forward on its 8 legs, its compound eyes glittering with cruel amusement. Perhaps we should explain to our primitive visitors why their application is so amusing, it chittered. You see, little human, kinetic weapons became obsolete approximately 12,000 years ago, when the first species developed energy shielding. It gestured with one segmented limb, and the holographic display changed to show a demonstration. A sleek alien vessel fired a glowing projectile at a shielded target. The projectile struck the shimmering barrier and disintegrated harmlessly. Energy shields dissipate kinetic force across their entire surface, the Korath continued. No physical projectile, no matter how large or fast, can't penetrate a properly calibrated defensive screen. Elena watched the demonstration without comment. Your species has no shields, the Korath said, turning to address the chamber rather than her. And your only weapons are useless against shields, which means your entire military doctrine is fundamentally flawed. It made a gesture that the translator rendered as dismissive contempt. You are defenseless prey in a galaxy full of predators. And you come before us asking for protection like children hiding behind their parents. The chamber erupted in renewed laughter. Elena waited for it to subside. May I respond? She asked quietly. The veilless speaker inclined its tendrils in what she took as permission. Honored delegates, Elena said, her voice calm and clear. You are correct. The humanity lacks many of the technologies you take for granted. And you are correct that we are young and inexperienced compared to your ancient civilizations. She paused, looking around the chamber, but I would ask you to consider something before you dismiss us entirely. The laughter had faded, replaced by curious silence. Every species in this chamber faced challenges in their early development, Elena continued. You overcame those challenges and rose to greatness. And humanity has done the same. She straightened her shoulders. We may be primitive by your standards, but we have survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and disasters that would have broken lesser species. And we have not merely survived, we have thrived. The Thesic ambassador made a dismissive chiming sound. Pretty words. But words do not stop plasma weapons, it said. The vote will proceed. Elena nodded, knowing what was coming. The vote was unanimous, with not a single species supporting humanity's admission to the Accord. Your application is denied, the veilless speaker announced. You may reapply in 500 standard cycles, when perhaps your species will have developed sufficient technology to contribute meaningfully to galactic civilization. Elena bowed formally. Thank you for your consideration, she said, and her voice carried no trace of the anger burning in her chest. She turned and walked out of the chamber with her head held high. Ignoring the renewed laughter that followed her, Admiral Chun was waiting when she returned to the Prometheus, his weathered face unreadable as she delivered her report. They denied us, Elena said, unanimously, and they laughed at us the entire time. Chun nodded slowly, as if he had expected nothing else. What was their primary objection? He asked. Our weapons, Elena replied. They consider kinetic technology obsolete and useless against shields. A strange smile crossed the Admiral's face. Good, he said quietly. Let them think that. Elena frowned. Sir? Chun turned to look out the viewport at the distant stars. They have been comfortable for too long, Ambassador, and they have forgotten something important. What is that, sir? The Admiral's smile widened. That shields are designed to stop energy weapons, not a tungsten rod traveling at 3% the speed of light. He turned back to face her. Return to Earth and tell the Security Council what happened here today. And tell them Operation Longshot is approved. Elena did not understand what he meant, but she followed her orders. She would understand soon enough. The entire galaxy would. 18 months after humanity's humiliation at the Galactic Council, the colony on Hestia 7 was enjoying a peaceful morning. When the sky turned dark with alien ships, the Keth volume had come. Sarah Chun was working in the agricultural dome when the first explosion shook the ground beneath her feet. She looked up through the transparent ceiling and saw 3 massive vessels descending through the atmosphere, their hulls bristling with weapons that glowed with barely contained energy around her. Colonists began to scream and run. The Keth volume were known throughout the galaxy as raiders and slavers, predators who preyed on weak species and harvested them for labor and biological resources. The Galactic Council considered them a nuisance, but never bothered to stop them, especially when their targets were species too primitive to matter. Species like humanity. Sarah grabbed her younger brother's hand and pulled him. Or grabbed toward the emergency bunkers as plasma fire began raining. Down on the colony buildings exploded into flames and people fell burning in the streets. The colonies' defense systems activated automatically, but their missiles and projectile weapons bounced harmlessly off the shimmering purple shields that surrounded the Keth volume ships within an hour. The raiders had landed ground troops and begun herding survivors into containment fields. Sarah watched from her hiding spot in a drainage tunnel as the creatures moved through the ruined streets. They were tall and insectoid, with forearms ending in sharp claws and heads dominated by massive compound eyes. They moved with terrible efficiency, sorting the colonists into groups, the strong for labor, the weak for processing, the children for purposes Sarah did not want to imagine. She clutched her brother tighter and prayed for a miracle. 6 hours later, her prayer was answered. The UES Retribution dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Hestia system, its sensors already painting a picture of the disaster below. Commander Marcus Webb studied the tactical display with cold eyes, taking in the 3 Kethvol cruisers, the burning colony, and the thousands of human life signs still registering on the surface. Status report. He ordered 3 enemy vessels. Sir, his sensor officer replied, each approximately twice our mass. And all 3 are running military-grade energy shields. Webb nodded. He had expected as much. The Keth volume were careful predators who never attacked targets that could fight back. Weapon status? Lieutenant Commander Yuki Tanaka checked her console. Primary railgun capacitors at full charge, sir. And we have 12 rounds ready in the magazine. Range to target? 200,000 kilometers and closing. One of the Keth volume cruisers had detected them and was turning to face the approaching human vessel. A transmission crackled through the communication system, automatically translated by the ship's computers. Attention, primitive vessel, the Keth volume commander said, his voice carrying unmistakable amusement. You have entered a designated harvesting zone. An interference with Keth volume operations carries severe penalties. Webb did not respond. Your weapons cannot harm us. The alien continued. Our shields will dissipate any projectile you fire long before it reaches our hull. And your armor cannot withstand a single shot from our plasma arrays. Still Webb said nothing. I will give you 1 chance to withdraw. The Keth volume offered. Turn your vessel around and flee. And I will allow you to live long enough to tell your species what happens to those who challenge the Keth volume. Webb finally spoke. You have attacked a human colony, he said, his voice flat and emotionless. You have killed human citizens, and you intend to enslave the survivors. Yes, the Keth volume agreed. And there is nothing you can do about it, little primitive. So run away before I lose my patience. Webb smiled, but there was no warmth in it. I do not think I will, he said. And then he turned to his weapons officer, Lieutenant Commander Tanaka. You may fire when ready. Tanaka's hands moved across her console, deep in the belly of the Retribution. Massive electromagnetic coils began to hum with power. The ship's primary railgun was a marvel of human engineering. 2 kilometers of superconducting rails capable of accelerating a 2-ton tungsten projectile to 3% of the speed of light. No other species in the galaxy bothered with such weapons anymore. Shields made them pointless. Everyone knew that everyone was wrong. The railgun fired. There was no dramatic beam of light, no glowing projectile visible to the naked eye. The tungsten round simply ceased to exist in one location and appeared in another, crossing 200,000 kilometers in less than a second. The Keth volume commander never even had time to react. His ship's shields were designed to dissipate energy weapons by spreading the incoming force across their entire surface. But the railgun round was Not an energy weapon. It was 2 tons of dense metal traveling at 9,000 kilometers per second, carrying more kinetic energy than a small nuclear explosion. The shield tried to stop it and failed completely. The round punched through the barrier as if it did not exist, struck the cruiser's reactor core, and continued straight through the other side of the ship. For a moment, the HFY vessel simply hung in space with 2 neat holes in its hull. Then the reactor containment failed, and the ship vanished in a sphere of expanding plasma. Target 1 destroyed, Tanaka reported calmly. Acquiring Target 2. The second HFY cruiser was already trying to turn, its captain screaming orders to spin up the FTL. Drive it was not fast enough. The second railgun round caught it amidships, tearing through 3 decks and severing the ship in half. The 2 pieces tumbled away from each other, venting atmosphere and bodies into the void. The third cruiser managed to begin its FTL jump sequence before Tanaka could fire again. It did not matter. Webb had anticipated this and positioned the retribution to cut off the most likely escape. Vector. The third round struck the cruiser's engine section just as it tried to enter faster than light. Travel. The conflicting energies tore the vessel apart from the inside out in less than 30 seconds. 3 HFY cruisers had been reduced to expanding clouds of debris. All targets destroyed. Tanaka announced. Webb stared at the debris fields for a long moment, then turned to his communications officer. Open a channel to Earth Command, he ordered. Inform them that the HFY raiders have been neutralized and request immediate support for search and rescue operations. He paused. And tell them that the railgun works even better than projected. Down on the surface of Hestia 7, Sarah Chun emerged from her hiding spot to find the HFY ground troops in chaos. Their ships were gone, destroyed by some force. They could not comprehend. Human soldiers in powered armor were already descending from dropships, engaging the confused raiders with devastating efficiency. Sarah held her brother close and watched as humanity's warriors cut through the alien slavers like a scythe through wheat. When a soldier finally reached her position, she found herself weeping with relief. It is going to be okay, the soldier told her. We are here now, and we are not going anywhere, Sarah nodded. Unable to speak above her, the UE's retribution hung in the sky like a guardian angel, its railgun already recharging for whatever threat might come next. The galaxy had laughed at humanity's primitive weapons. The galaxy was not laughing anymore. The news of the HFY defeat spread through the galactic communication networks like wildfire. And with it came questions that nobody could answer. How had a primitive human destroyer defeated 3 shielded cruisers in less than a minute? What weapon could possibly penetrate military-grade energy barriers? And most importantly, what did this mean for the balance of power that had kept the galaxy stable for millennia? The Vesic were the first to understand. High Analyst Crystalline 7 reviewed the sensor data from the battle with growing disbelief, her crystalline form flickering with colors that indicated deep distress. This cannot be correct, she said to her assembled colleagues. The readings indicate that the human projectile was traveling at approximately 3% of the speed of light. That is impossible, another analyst chimed. No species uses kinetic weapons at such velocities because the energy requirements would be enormous and the targeting challenges insurmountable. And yet, the data does not lie, Crystalline 7 replied. The humans have somehow solved both problems. She projected the calculations onto the central display. At this velocity, a 2-ton projectile carries roughly the same energy as a fusion warhead, she explained. Our shields are designed to dissipate directed energy by spreading it across the barrier surface. But kinetic energy does not work the same way. The implications hung in the air. Between them, you are saying our shields are useless against these weapons, one of the analysts said. I am saying that every shield design in the galaxy was created to counter energy weapons. Crystalline 7 corrected. Nobody ever considered that kinetic weapons could achieve such velocities because every species abandoned that technology once shields were invented. Every species except the humans? Yes. And because they never developed shields themselves, they kept improving their kinetic weapons instead, pushing the technology far beyond anything we ever imagined possible. The Galactic High Council received her report within hours and immediately classified it at the highest level of secrecy. But secrets do not stay secret for long in a galaxy full of spies within a week. Every major power knew what the humans had done within a month. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session to address what they were now calling the human problem. Ambassador Elena Vasquez returned to the Great Chamber for the second time. But the atmosphere was very different from her previous visit. There was no laughter now. The delegates watched her with expressions ranging from fear to anger to calculating interest. And the veilless speaker wasted no time on pleasantries. The human vessel Retribution destroyed 3 Keth volume cruisers 18 standard days ago, it announced. This action was taken without Council authorization in Council-monitored space. Elena stepped forward. We defended our colony from raiders, she replied, her voice clear and strong. Raiders that the Council refused to address despite our formal requests for assistance. The Keth volume are a sovereign species. The speaker began. The Keth volume were slavers, Elena interrupted. I use the past tense deliberately because since our engagement at Hestia 7, we have destroyed 11 more of their vessels across 4 different systems. Shocked murmurs rippled through the chamber. Their leadership has agreed to cease all operations within 50 light years of human space, Elena continued. We have accomplished in 1 month what this council failed to do in 12,000 years. The Korath ambassador rose angrily. You have disrupted the established order, it accused. You have introduced a destabilizing element into galactic politics. We have protected our people, Elena shot back. Something you refused to help us do when we asked. You possess weapons that could threaten any ship in the galaxy. The Korath pressed. No shield can stop your projectiles, and this gives you an unfair advantage, Elena laughed. And the sound carried through the chamber. Unfair? She repeated. You denied us membership because we lacked shields, and now you accuse us of being unfair because we found a way to make shields irrelevant? She turned to address the entire assembly. For 18 months? The humans have listened to your mockery and endured your contempt. And we have watched the Keth volume raid and enslave and murder while this council did nothing. Her voice rose. You called us primitives because we used kinetic weapons. And you told us our technology was obsolete and useless. But you were wrong. She pointed at the tactical display, still showing the wreckage of the Keth volume fleet. Our weapons work, and we will use them to defend ourselves against any threat, whether this council approves or not. The chamber fell silent. Admiral Chun stepped forward to stand beside Elena, his presence commanding attention despite his lack of official diplomatic status. However, he said, we did not come here today to make threats. He paused, letting the tension build. We came to offer you a choice. The veilless speaker leaned forward. What choice? Humanity seeks partnership, not dominion, Chun explained. We have no interest in conquering the galaxy or overthrowing the established order. Then what do you want? The Galactic ambassador demanded. We want what we asked for 18 months ago, Chun replied. Membership in the Galactic Accord with full rights and responsibilities. And if we refuse? Chun shrugged. Then we will continue to protect ourselves and our interests by whatever means necessary. And you will have to decide whether you want us as friends or as something else. The implication was clear. Humanity was no longer asking for permission. The vote that followed was very different from the first one. Several species voted against membership out of fear or spite. But many more recognized the wisdom of keeping humanity close rather than pushing them away when the final tally came in. The result was clear. Humanity had been accepted into the Galactic Accord by a margin of 3-1. Elena Vasquez smiled as the veilless speaker announced the decision. "Welcome to the Galactic community," it said, though its tendrils flickered with colors that suggested it was not entirely pleased. "May our partnership be long and prosperous." "Thank you," Elena replied graciously. "I am certain it will be." As she and Admiral Chun left the chamber, she allowed herself a small moment of satisfaction. 18 months ago, she had stood in this same room and been laughed at by creatures who thought humanity was nothing. Now those same creatures were afraid of what humanity had become. It was a good start. But it was only the beginning. The galaxy had spent millennia in comfortable stagnation. Secure in the knowledge that their shields made them invincible, humanity had shattered that illusion with a single tungsten round. And the ripples from that shot were only beginning to spread. 1 year after humanity joined the Galactic Accord, the galaxy had become a very different place. Trade ships from a dozen species now visited Earth regularly, their cargo holds filled with exotic technologies and rare materials. Human stations appeared at strategic points throughout the region, bristling with railgun batteries and surrounded by growing fleets of warships. But the most significant change was not military. It was economic. The humans were selling their secrets. Ambassador Karth 9 could not believe his compound eyes when he first heard the news. He had traveled to Earth Station Prime, expecting to negotiate a non-aggression treaty, hoping to ensure that the humans would not turn their devastating weapons against his people. Instead, the humans had offered him something far more valuable. "You want to sell us your Railgun technology?" he asked. Certain he had misunderstood, Admiral Chun smiled across the negotiating table. "Not the weapons themselves," he clarified, "but the principles behind them, yes." "Why would you do this?" Karth 9 demanded. "Your weapons give you an enormous advantage over every other species in the galaxy." "For now," Chun agreed. "But advantages do not last forever, and eventually someone would figure out what we have done and develop their own countermeasures." He leaned forward. "We would rather be the ones controlling how that technology spreads." Karth 9 considered this. It made a certain kind of sense. By selling the underlying principles, the humans could ensure that the new technologies developed in ways that did not threaten their own security. They could also build alliances and generate wealth at the same time. "What exactly offering?" he asked. Chen activated a holographic display showing technical schematics. 3 separate packages, he explained. First, shield harmonics that can resist kinetic impacts at high velocities, which means your ships would no longer be completely vulnerable to railgun fire. Karth 9's mandibles clicked with interest. Second, armor compositions that distribute kinetic force more efficiently than anything currently available, providing backup protection in case the shields fail. And the third, sensor systems capable of tracking hypervelocity projectiles, Chun finished. So you can see the shots coming and take evasive action. Karth 9 studied the schematics with growing amazement. These technologies would not make the railguns obsolete, but they would significantly reduce their effectiveness. Any species that purchased them would be much safer than before. "What do you want in return?" he asked. "Different things from different species," Chun admitted. "From your people, we want access to your manufacturing techniques for crystalline computing matrices." That was valuable technology, but not irreplaceable, and you would sell these same packages to other species as well. "To those who meet our conditions," Chen confirmed. "We require that purchasers agree not to share the technology with species we designate as hostile. And we require certain guarantees about how the technology will be used." Karth 9 understood immediately. The humans were not just Selling technology, they were building a network of all eyes bound together by shared interests and mutual dependence. It was brilliant. My government will need to review your proposal, he said. Carefully, of course, Chan agreed. Take all the time you need. He stood and extended his hand in the human gesture of agreement. But I suspect you will find our terms quite reasonable. Korath 9 took the offered hand, feeling the strange warmth of human flesh against his chitinous claw. You are more subtle than we expected, he admitted. When you first came to the council, we saw only primitive technology and assumed you were simple creatures. Many species have made that mistake. Chan acknowledged. We will not make it again. Over the following months, similar negotiations took place with dozens of species. The Vesic purchased sensor upgrades in exchange for medical technology that could extend human lifespans. The Velith traded exotic materials for agricultural techniques that could feed their expanding population. Even some of the species that had voted against humanity's admission found themselves approaching Earth with offers and proposals. The old order was crumbling. For 12,000 years, the galaxy had existed in a stable equilibrium, where energy shields and energy weapons perfectly countered each other. Wars were expensive and rarely decisive because neither side could gain a significant advantage. The humans had shattered that equilibrium with a single innovation, and now the pieces were falling in new and unpredictable patterns. Some species panicked and began massive military buildups. Others formed alliances in hopes of collective security. A few attempted to develop their own hypervelocity weapons, with varying degrees of success. Through it all, humanity positioned itself at the center of the new order. Their technology was the foundation upon which the new balance would be built. Their alliances were the framework that would hold it together, and their military remained the final guarantee that the arrangement would be respected. Admiral Chun met privately with Ambassador Vasquez one evening to discuss the progress of their plans. The Korath have signed, she reported. That makes 17 species in our primary alliance network and another 32 in secondary agreements. Good, Chun nodded. And the opposition? The Morthaki are still refusing to negotiate, and the Velith hardliners are trying to form a counterblock. Let them try, Chun said. They will find it difficult to build an alliance when half the galaxy is already tied to us economically. Vasquez hesitated. Some of our own people are uncomfortable with how quickly we are moving, she said. They think we are overreaching. Chun turned to look out the viewport at the stars. Do you remember what they said to us in that chamber? He asked. They called us children and primitives, and they laughed at us. I remember. They were not entirely wrong, Chun admitted. We were young and ignorant and had much to learn. He turned back to face her. But we have learned, Ambassador, and we have learned faster than they ever expected. What have we learned? Chun smiled. That the galaxy is not kind to the weak, and that respect must be earned rather than given. He gestured at the stars beyond the viewport. We earned our place out there with blood and fire, and now we are building something that will last. An empire? An opportunity, Chun corrected. The old order was stagnant and corrupt, and it protected the strong while abandoning the weak. And our new order will be different? It will be what we make it, Chun said. That is the gift we have given ourselves and every other species willing to work with us. Vasquez considered his words, and those who refuse to work with us? Chun's expression hardened. They will learn the same lesson the Keth volume learned, he said, that humanity does not forget and does not forgive. He paused, and that our railguns never miss. 5 years after the first railgun fired at Hestia 7, Secretary General Elena Vasquez stood before a transformed Galactic Council to deliver her final address. The chamber looked different now, human. Architects had been invited to redesign the space after the old structures suffered damage during the brief Morthachi uprising, and their influence was visible everywhere. The harsh angles had been softened, the lighting improved, and new sections added to accommodate the growing number of species seeking membership in the Reformed Accord. More importantly, the attitudes of the delegates had changed. No one laughed when a human took the central platform now. Distinguished delegates, Elena began, her voice carrying easily through the improved acoustics. 5 years ago, I stood in this chamber as a representative of a species you dismissed as primitive and worthless. She paused, letting her gaze sweep across the assembled aliens. You were wrong. There were no objections, no angry protests. Everyone knew the truth. The galaxy had been transformed in ways that would have seemed impossible just a few years earlier. The Volith hegemony, once the dominant political force in the region, had fragmented into 3 competing factions. 2 of those factions had purchased human weapons technology and now served as key members of Earth's growing alliance network. The Keth volume no longer existed as a political entity. Their leadership had been hunted down and destroyed, their fleets scattered, their homeworld occupied by a joint coalition force. The survivors had dispersed across the galaxy as refugees, stripped of power and purpose, and humanity had accomplished something that no species had done in 12,000 years of galactic civilization. They had changed the rules when we first came to you. Elena continued. We asked for help defending ourselves against threats we could not face alone. And you refused. She gestured at the delegates around her. You told us to return in 500 years, when we might have developed sufficient technology to be useful. A few of the older delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats. We did not wait 500 years, Elena said. We solved our problems ourselves, and in doing so, we discovered something important about this galaxy. What did you discover? The new Valith representative asked. That you had grown complacent, Elena replied. Your civilization had found solutions that worked, and you stopped looking for better ones, building walls around your knowledge and calling them wisdom. She took a step forward. Humanity never had that luxury because every generation of our species had to fight for survival against predators, against diseases, against the environment, and against each other. Her voice hardened. We learned that nothing is truly obsolete if you push it far enough. And we learned that limits exist only to be broken. She turned to address the full assembly. You abandoned kinetic weapons 12,000 years ago because shields made them ineffective. But we kept improving them because we had no other choice. And now your weapons threaten the entire balance of galactic power. A Thesic delegate chimed. No, Elena corrected. Our weapons have exposed the weakness of a balance that was never as stable as you believed. And they have created an opportunity for something better. She activated a holographic display showing a map of the galaxy, hundreds of points of light marked, the locations of human stations, allied territories, and trade routes that now connected species that had never interacted before. In 5 years, we have built an economic network that spans 17% of explored space, Elena explained. We have shared medical technologies that have extended lifespans across 43 species. And we have provided defensive systems that have reduced piracy and raiding by 68%. She zoomed the display to show Earth at the center of a web of connections. We have done this not through conquest or coercion, but through partnership and trade. Some would say you have done it through fear, the Korath ambassador suggested. Though his tone was not accusatory, fear is a component, Elena acknowledged. No one wants to face our railguns in battle, and that fear has encouraged cooperation. She smiled. But fear alone cannot build what we have built. And the species that have joined us have done so because they see the benefits of participation. She deactivated the display. Humanity came to this galaxy with nothing but determination and a willingness to learn. And in 5 years, we have become one of the most influential powers in explored space. She looked around the chamber one final time. We did not achieve this by being better than you or smarter than you, but by refusing to accept that the way things were was the way things had to be. Elena straightened her shoulders. The old order is gone, and it is not coming back, and in its place we are building something new. What exactly are you building? The Valeth asked a galaxy where strength protects the weak instead of exploiting them, Elena replied. A galaxy where innovation is rewarded rather than feared. And a galaxy where every species has the opportunity to contribute and grow. She paused. This is what humanity offers to those willing to work with us. And to those who are not willing, she let the silence stretch. We suggest you reconsider. The address was broadcast across the DAS galaxy and would be studied by historians for centuries to come. They would debate what had made humanity successful, and whether their rise was inevitable or simply fortunate. Some would argue that it was their technology, the devastating railguns that had shattered the old military balance. Others would point to their economic strategy, the careful building of alliances through shared interests. A few would suggest that it was simply luck, being in the right place at the right time with the right weapons. But the humans themselves told a different story. They spoke of a young ambassador standing alone in a chamber full of giants, enduring mockery with quiet dignity while her people planned their response. That was the moment, they said. That was when the galaxy made its mistake. Not because they had underestimated humanity's weapons, not because they had failed to recognize human potential, but because they had underestimated something far more dangerous. Human spite. The galaxy had laughed at humanity, and humanity had never forgotten. They had taken that laughter and transformed it into fuel, burning it to power their rise from primitive newcomers to galactic power brokers. And now, when humans looked back at those early days of mockery and dismissal, they did not feel anger. They felt gratitude, because without that laughter, they might never have been motivated to prove themselves. Without that contempt, they might have accepted their place at the bottom of the galactic hierarchy. Instead, they had reached for the stars and taken them by force. Elena Vasquez retired from public service 3 years after her final address, having served humanity longer than any other diplomat in history. On her last day, a reporter asked her what she considered her greatest achievement. She thought for a long moment before answering. Making them stop laughing, she said, and then she smiled. And making them realize that they should have taken us seriously from the very beginning. The reporter asked one final question. What message do you have for any species that might still doubt humanity's place in the galaxy? Elena's smile widened. Remember Hestia 7, she said. Remember the Keth volume, and remember that our railguns are always loaded. With that, she turned and walked away, leaving behind a galaxy that humanity had transformed, a galaxy that would never underestimate them again.